and thank you for joining us for another episode of The Slide. This podcast aims to normalize conversations that are necessary in our community, centered around themes such as education, politics, justice, and education. However, before we can attempt to navigate those very deep and serious waters, we have to create a vessel that will allow us to safely navigate the storms that we experience. Our communities right now are steeped in a battle, and that battle is for our youth. We have to protect our future. How can we progress? How can we succeed as a nation and as a community if we continue to deplete our most valuable resource, which is our youth? Today, we have the pleasure of being joined by Mrs. Rosa Devoe of the Gabriel Devoe Foundation. Thank you, Ms. Rosa Devoe. It's an honor to have you here with us today. How are you doing today, Ms. Rosa?
I'm doing well, thank you. It
would be an honor if you could introduce yourself to our listeners and our viewing audience. Tell them a little bit about yourself and what is the Gabriel Devoe Foundation.
Good afternoon. I'm Rose Devoe, the CEO and the founder of the Gabriel John Devoe Foundation. And Gabriel's foundation launched in the midst of tragedy. In November of 2022, my son had come home from college for a break, and someone who had absolutely no right made a life or death decision over him. Gabriel lost his life on a Wednesday afternoon, close to the 7 p.m. hour. There were many witnesses. We have done every single thing possible to seek justice for Gabriel. We've put a $25,000 reward out for someone to speak up and say something. And it plagues me every single day because I've worked for the last 42 years servicing the citizens of Duval County. And my philosophy was in the judicial system, do not treat people in the way that we feel like they should be treated. Treat them with dignity and honor. And it plagues me every single day that potentially one of those people killed my son. And so I'm here today to talk about Gabriel, to talk about the great work that we are doing. Because behind pain is purpose. And I think I'm finding that. I have not yet arrived, but I am working every single day to do so.
Yes, ma'am. And it is an honor to watch you on your journey, to participate on that journey with you. And if there's any assistance that we can provide you in that journey, we're here to partner with you in order to be able to assist you in achieving justice for your son. Could you share with us a memory of Gabriel? Who was Gabriel?
Well, it would be remiss if I didn't tell you about Gabriel's backstory. Gabriel was a miracle baby. He, at 10 weeks in utero, the physicians could not detect a heartbeat, and they told us that the pregnancy wasn't viable. Surgery was scheduled for the next morning to abort Gabriel. We wake every day knowing that 26 years ago, we saw God perform a miracle, a work wrought by divine power, God, for divine purpose, his glory, by means beyond the reach of man. At 8 months, the little boy who man said he wouldn't survive was put into our arms. God told us what to call him. He said to call him Gabriel. Gabriel changed our lives. He grew our faith. He birthed ministries. He allowed us to understand that although his life was at the hands of careless man, God has the last say so. And unfortunately, 23 years later, we lost Gabriel at the hands of an evil man. But his story did not end that day on November 3rd, and I'm going to ensure it. Gabriel was fun, he was comical, he loved life, he loved people, he loved his family. He was courageous, a protector. I remember when he would come home from college and I'd hear the garage door go up and I'd run down the stairs and I'd say, my handsome son is home. And he'd pick me up in a bear hug, just hug me so tight. And he'd say, hey, pretty lady. Hey, Ma. Gabriel loved me, and I loved him. I miss him every single yoctosecond of every single day. For 9 months, I was debilitated, unable to rise. I couldn't swing my left leg to get out of bed because the pain was so intense, excruciating, so much so that my preference was not to breathe, but I knew that I had to survive because I would fight unto no end for justice for my boy. And that is what I am doing today. I know without a shadow of a doubt that there are people out there who know what happened to Gabriel. I don't know if it's fear, but I do know that as a community, as a people, in order to affect change, it is absolutely essential that we speak up. There are venues where we can speak anonymously. We don't have to provide our names, but we can say something. If they saw something, heard something, know something, say something to the authorities. That will make a difference in so many lives of families who are waiting for justice. I remember Gabriel, he loved to dress. He was so meticulous, it was important that he wouldn't leave the house unless he had a lineup, a fresh lineup. He was just so wonderful. His friends to this date, they come to see me and they tell me beautiful stories about Gabriel. And I remember in football practice, there was a play that was underway, and one of Gabriel's teammates was going to be injured severely. And Gabriel made the choice to divert. And in that diversion, Gabriel in turn injured himself. He couldn't play for the remainder of the year, and that injury carried on to college, where it impeded on him getting on the college football team. He put others before himself. And someone that day took everything from us, and they took everything from our Gabriel.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing a little bit about who Gabriel was. And I know that this is very, very difficult to share, to bring all of these memories forward. However, it's a wisdom in this universe, and it's a wisdom with God. He gives missions and challenges to individuals, understanding what that challenge or what that difficulty will produce. And as you're navigating this storm of difficulty, you're helping to birth a consciousness amongst our community, a consciousness that will ensure that lives aren't lost anymore. So we're here with you. We stand with you. Could you help us? Because unfortunately, the loss of your son also granted you admission into a fraternity and a sorority that none of us really desire admission, right? And that's the fraternity and the sorority of parents who have lost their children to violent crime. Could you share with us what has been the most challenging aspect of navigating grief for you and for your family?
Absolutely. There is absolutely no greater pain than to lose a child. The cognitive dissonance to even imagine that the brain is trying to comprehend that you've lost your child, and your heart and your mind cannot fathom embracing that concept. You wake every day, and every single day seems like day one, and that the disbelief and just trying to understand that your child is no longer here, and breathing is difficult. The desire to strive, to live, to move forward, to embrace the things, the dreams, the hopes, the things that you planned for, all the wonderful things that were yet to come. And I was at the end of my career, and I'd vowed that when Gabriel graduated from college that I'd retire and we'd do all these great things. We were going to start a family business. We were going to do great things. We had so many plans and so many dreams and so many hopes. And unfortunately, on that dreaded day, on November 3rd of 2022, in an instant, my world turned dark. Everything that I knew was turned upside down. My future crumbled. My dreams shattered. My belief system and everything was shattered. My faith was shaken. Everything that I'd hoped for was eliminated because someone decided to make a decision that they did not own. They did not have a right. But what I rest assured in knowing is that God took my Gabriel's hand. But what I was left with was grief as a constant companion. The challenge of navigating this horrible grief is that I'm forced to live every single day knowing that I've got to do it without my child. I've got to do it through intense heartache and pain, and thinking that the only thing that could stop the pain, the only thing that would make it go away is that if the heart simply just stopped. But I know that it couldn't because I knew that I had work to do. So I had to find a place. I had to find my strength. I had to go into the reservoirs of hope and God's promises and his belief, and just trusting that I know that he doesn't make mistakes. I know. And Ecclesiastes is clear that we have an appointed time to live and an appointed time to die. And I promise you, no matter the level of your faith, that thing is hard to embrace, to understand, and to accept. But when you love God, and we loved God, that we trusted him at Gabriel's birth. We trusted him with his life when man was saying that potentially he wouldn't have arms or legs, depending on what the physician punctured, what she did when she performed the procedure to eliminate the pregnancy that he survived through. And then the medication that they gave me afterwards was to do what she didn't do. And so even through that, God kept Gabriel. And our prayer was that he would be well and strong, and the cells of his body would contain divine and holy healing power. And God did it. He did it. And so the hardest thing for me to understand is, God, how? How could that be? How could we exhibit so much faith and trust and love for you, and it ends this way? But what my God assured me of, it didn't end, daughter. I knew that Gabriel was sent here to do a profound work. But what God reminded me is he said, I didn't tell you at whose hands it would be at. And so I knew, lying down on my back and my pillow drenched with tears, that it would be me who would have to rise and carry it through my son's legacy and build God's kingdom. And that is what I wake every day to do. I've died 1,000 times, had a million little mini funerals. We think that when we bury our child, that is the end. There are many funerals when you have to contend with their cars and their clothes, and you have to contend with them in your estate planning, that you've got to remove them from those places. That there are so many funerals that take place, and so many things that people think ended on the day that we released our child back to God. It doesn't end there. It doesn't end there. The absolute worst day of our lives was the last day of Gabriel's.
But it was also the first day of the rest of our lives.
And I found strength and comfort in knowing that my son is with his Father in heaven. That is what keeps me going. That is what makes me rise. That is what makes me fight when every part of my anatomy doesn't want to move and my brain can't function and concentrate because I can't even fathom that it was supposed to be my child wiping my mouth and sitting at my bedside when I left this earth. And that won't happen. It won't happen. And so the thing about grief, so many people misconstrue, is that there are secondary losses. There are so many secondary losses. I lost my identity. I lost my joy, my motivation, my security. I lost my dreams. My faith was challenged. My future was shattered. I lost the passages of life. I lost seeing Gabriel marry the love of his life and have children and a family and embark upon the career that he'd worked so hard for. I didn't get to see those things. I don't get to have my mother-son dance with my son. I don't get to share the rest of my life with him. But the beauty about the secondary losses is they're not gone. They're still there. They're just shattered. We have to just figure out how to put them back in place. They won't look the same. They'll never look the same. We'll never be the same. I'll never be the same. Someone said to me that they were waiting for Rose. And I said, the Rose that you know no longer exists. She doesn't exist. But what I do know is that my God, he does. He puts broken pieces back together again. And I have come to believe and know without a shadow of a doubt that I will not, I repeat, I will not allow those villains to take anything else from me. They took one of the most important things from me. They took my child, my son, my only son, our miracle. When we thought we were through with the family, Gabriel showed up. We love him. We love him even more today. But I know my God loves him even more. And so I have to trust that. And not having justice for Gabriel is the hardest part, because there are villains out there who are breathing freedom's air who killed my son. And there are people who wake up every day who knows who did it. But what I do know, without a shadow of a doubt, they have a freedom expiration date. Because the God that I serve, he honors effectual fervent prayer. And we have not ceased in that thing. And we won't ever. Gabriel's jersey for football was number 7. He called me from Paxson one day and he asked, Mom, somebody took my other jersey number. And he says, what's your favorite number? And I said, Gabe, my favorite number is 7 because it signifies completion and perfection. And ironically enough, they killed my son nearly 7 o'clock in the afternoon. So that time of day holds a sacred place for us. And there are some times and some things that we are doing that they are not anticipating. So we know while we may be in the waiting room, waiting for God to show up, we know that he will. And the beauty about when he does.
Right.
So justice for our Gabriel is coming.
Right. That's right. Thank you. And what we can understand, or in my opinion, as I'm sitting here listening to you speak, I can't just help but feel your spirit and your energy. But it also populates my mind with the thought that, throughout our religious experience, whenever a great person is to come, they're always sent an angel, right? And you'll see throughout books of scripture the appearance of the angel Gabriel to command prophets and to give them instruction, to guide them in their steps. Blessed we are to have you here with us today, having received a message from God in order to perform a task that is necessary and required for our community. So it's very important to me, and if you could help us to understand how this horrific event has transformed you and also transformed this experience into a season of advocacy for you. What is the Gabriel John Devoe Foundation doing now post this experience?
Before I dive into that, I think it's essential to note, I've come to know that God makes us as broken bread and poured out wine to please himself. You see, in order for bread to be shared, it has to be broken. And the wine signifies the giving of ourselves. And while I would never ask for this journey, I would never, ever ask for this journey, I trust that God is doing greatness. Pastor Rick Warren said it best. Your greatest ministry will come out of your greatest pain. I never understood the concept of that thing until now. Your greatest ministry will come out of your greatest pain. In the midst of excruciating, unbearable pain, when I didn't think I'd survive, I cried out to God in the wee hours of the morning and I asked him, what is it that you want me to do with this? What is it that you want me to do with this? We've served you, we've labored in your vineyard, we've cared about your people, we've loved you, we've done everything you've asked us to do. And all I could hear was a sweet whisper in my spirit on my tear-drenched pillow. When I felt like I was walking in the valley of the shadow of death, God's still strong voice said, daughter, your purpose is at the mountaintop. But God, I'm in the valley. How am I going to get to the mountaintop? He said, my grace is sufficient in the valley as it is on the mountaintop. I want you to get up and I want you to go to the mountaintop. And when you go, daughter, I want you to take some grieving mothers with you. I want you to teach them and show them and help them and give them everything that you need. Who better can do that than you? You know exactly what they need. You know that when they are waiting, parents who are waiting for justice, as we are in our foundation, we work with those families because we know what it's like to wait for the call from the detective saying that we have enough for an arrest warrant and we're going to be making an arrest, and that call hasn't come. That pain is excruciating. That wait is brutal. You just begin to wonder. You begin to question everything that you believe and that you have believed for so many years. But through Gabriel's Foundation, we're going to work with those families. We're going to help them understand how to navigate the system. I worked in the system for 42 years and I wondered what was it all for? And I'm wondering and I'm seeing now that God had a perfect plan because I know how to move around in it. And even those parents who are no longer waiting for justice, but an arrest has occurred, that they have to rely on a panel of jurors to decide the guilt or innocence of the murderer who killed their child. And people evade that process of jury duty. And we're going to teach the community the importance of showing up. It's important to show up because families are counting on them. And the judicial system, the jury process is as good as those who show up. And so when that summons come in the mail, it is not, I repeat, it is not a death sentence. Families are counting on people to be able to listen to the evidence and hear what the witnesses say and understand lie from truth and be able to make a sound decision. Because how often is it that parents walk through that horrific, and I mean it's horrific, that you have to watch, you have to look at photos and evidence of your child, and then that decision could potentially go the wrong way for the wrong reasons. And it's heartbreaking. It's extremely heartbreaking. We've joined the fight to end gun violence. The year of 2022, when Gabriel was murdered, was one of the highest years. The murder rates in Duval County had started to go down. I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of the 130s that year, somewhere around there. But we're supporting those families who are waiting, because I don't know what I would do if I didn't have my faith. I don't know that I would survive that. I've seen pastors buckle at their knees at the loss of their children. I've seen marriages shattered. I've seen families broken, because it breaks everything. It breaks everything because losing your child is not the natural order. It is not the natural order. And so even in that, we're going to be helping families understand the resources that are available to them. For every single felony and misdemeanor case where a defendant is sentenced in Duval, in the state of Florida, $100 for felony and $50 for misdemeanor. Those funds go to a trust fund that's available for victims' families. They provide $7,500 for funeral expenses, mental health counseling, lost wages, family support in ways that they need it. And so many people don't know those services are available to them. And although we've launched Gabriel's Foundation in honor of him, we will always be in constant pursuit of his justice every single day until I take my last breath. That murderer may be free, but my prayer is that he's in bondage or she's in bondage. Although not in bonds yet, but in bondage. Because the mind.
As we come to the conclusion of this episode of The Slide, how can individuals support the Gabriel John Devoe Foundation? How can they get in contact with you as well as we bring this episode to a close?
We can be found at GabrielJohnDevoeFoundation.org. As well, we have a Facebook page, Gabriel John Devoe. And if a family, a mother is out there and you have absolutely nowhere to go, we're here.
I had the pleasure of sitting in this same space and listening to Dr. Nashawn Nix during the course of an interview. And during the course of that interview, the individual who he was interviewing had a father, I believe, that was incarcerated. And he sent out a call asking individuals to continue to share. He believed that the words that were shared during the course of the recording would make their way through those prison walls and gates into the mind and the heart of the individual that they were reaching from right here in this very space. So from right here in this very space, we're going to ask individuals to please share Miss Rose Devoe's testimony. Share this episode of The Slide. Continue to share it. Share it until it makes its way to the mind and the heart of the individual that treacherously took the life of her son. Consider what you did. Consider repentance. There are a lot of circumstances beyond which we can understand that leads to the loss of life. We understand this. We understand that we're steeped in a culture that has promoted the genocide of our community since 1555. We've been going through things like this on our sojourn in this nation. At some point, it must stop. Let's allow this period of time that we find ourselves in today to be the catalyst for change. Let's start right now reconciling and healing our communities. We shouldn't lose any more life. How much life do we have to lose before we realize that this is not sustainable? When we continue to kill the doctors and lawyers and engineers and architects of tomorrow, how will we have a community that will be worth a damn? All right. So anything that you would like to share with us as we close, please, one final word of guidance for those individuals who have heard your words here today, who are suffering from the pain that you suffer from or could potentially suffer from that pain. What would you like to share with them?
I know that the person who murdered Gabriel was not their first victim. And I don't believe that he'll be their last unless someone speaks up and says something. And if you're a parent out there and you're listening today and you experience the loss of your child, I know you're encountering the greatest pain that you could ever imagine. But I am here to tell you, although you do not think you will survive. I believe that we're mandated, that we have to for our children. Contrary to wanting to find ways to cope, unhealthy ways to cope, that is not the answer. Stand up. Make a change. Because I can attest to you, the organ actually aches. The heart aches. I know that it does. The world seems dark, like there is no light. I know. I live it every single day. But we have to get up and we have to find our purpose behind that great pain. I don't know what tomorrow holds for justice for Gabriel. But what I do know is that I serve a God who's able to do exceedingly and abundantly above everything that I can think or ask. And I know that he honors faithfulness. And to the grieving mothers out there, we carry a love for our child that death would never bury. I mean, never, ever bury. Our hearts beat for our babies every single day. And although the world no longer sees them, I believe they're with us. And remember, strong women cry too. And it doesn't matter, because I believe behind those tears, there's a renewing and a purging that takes place that helps us reach a point that we have every animal rights to do whatever necessary to honor our children. And for those of us who are fighting for justice, to fight for their justice, even when you can't see it. Don't lose hope. Trust that every opportunity you have, that you have to speak on their behalf. I call it the waiting room. It's a lonely, dark place. But as I said earlier, God is in the valley just as he is on the mountaintop. And I believe that I'm going to stand from the mountaintop. My son's life, his mission, his ministry, and his testimony didn't end November 3rd of 2022. I believe that it's simply testimony 2.0. And who better to tell it than me?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your pain. And also thank you for sharing your triumph as we move towards justice for Gabriel. This is what we do here on the slide. We bring stories so individuals can take purposeful action in order to bring about the change that's necessary for our community. And as we close, remember, you can run and you can glide, but you cannot hide from anybody who appears on the slide. Thank you very much.